The Magic Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton. Dick comes to stay. Once upon a time, there were 3 children, Joe, Bessie, and Fanny. They lived with their mother and father in a little cottage deep in the country. The girls had to help their mother in the house, and Joe helped his father in the garden. Now, one day their mother had a letter. She didn't very often have letters, so the children wondered what it was about. "Listen," she said. "This is something quite exciting for you. Your cousin Dick is coming to stay with us." "Oh," said all the children, pleased. Dick was about the same age as Joe. He was a merry boy, rather naughty, and it would be such fun to have him. "He can sleep with me in my little room," said Joe. "Oh, Mother, what fun! When is he coming?" "Tomorrow," said Mother. "You girls can put up a little bed for him in Joe's room. And Joe, you must make room for Dick's things in your cupboard. He's going to stay quite a long time because his mother is ill and can't look after him." The 3 children flew upstairs to get Joe's room ready for Dick as well. "I say, what will Dick say when we tell him about the Enchanted Wood and the Faraway Tree?" cried Joe. "And what will he say when we show him our friends there, Silky and old Moonface and the dear old deaf saucepan man and everyone?" said Bessie. "He will get a surprise," said Fanny. They got everything ready for their cousin. They put up a little camp bed for him and found some blankets. They put a cushion for a pillow. They made room in Joe's cupboard and chest of drawers for Dick's things. Then they looked out of the window. It looked onto a dark, thick wood whose trees waved in the wind, not far from the bottom of the garden. "The Enchanted Wood," said Bessie softly. "What marvelous adventures we have had there. Maybe Dick will have some too." Dick arrived the next day. He came in the carrier's cart with a small bag of clothes. He jumped down and hugged the children's mother. "Hello, Aunt Polly," he said. "It's good of you to have me. Hello, Joe. I say, aren't Bessie and Fanny big now? It's lovely to be with you all again." The children took him up to his room. The girls unpacked his bag and put his things neatly away in the cupboard and the chest. They showed him the bed he was to sleep on. "I expect I shall find it rather dull here after living in London," said Dick, putting his hairbrushes on the little dressing table. "It seems so quiet. I shall miss the noise of buses and trams." "You won't find it dull," said Joe. "My word, Dick, we've had more adventures since we've been here than ever we had when we lived in a big town." "What sort of adventures?" asked Dick in surprise. "It seems such a quiet place that I couldn't have thought there was even a small adventure to be found." The children took Dick to the window. "Look, Dick," said Joe. "Do you see that thick, dark wood over there, backing onto the lane at the bottom of our garden?" "Yes," said Dick. "It seems quite ordinary to me, except that the leaves of the trees seem a darker green than usual." "Well, listen, Dick. That's the Enchanted Wood," said Bessie. Dick's eyes opened wide. He stared at the wood. "You're making fun of me," he said at last. "No, we're not," said Fanny. "We mean what we say. Its name is the Enchanted Wood, and it is enchanted. And oh, Dick, in the middle of it is the most wonderful tree in the world." "What sort of tree?" asked Dick, feeling quite excited. "It's a simply enormous tree," said Joe. "Its top goes right up to the clouds. And oh, Dick, at the top of it is always some strange land. You can go there by climbing up the top branch of the faraway tree, going up a little ladder through a hole in the big cloud that always lies on the top of the tree. And there you are in some peculiar land." "I don't think I believe you," said Dick. "You are making it all up." "Dick, we'll take you there and show you what we mean," said Bessie. "It's all quite true. Oh, Dick, we've had such exciting adventures at the top of the faraway tree. We've been to the rocking land and the birthday land, and the land of the take what you want, and the land of snowmen," said Fanny. "You just can't think how exciting it all is." "And, Dick, all kinds of queer folk live in the trunk of the faraway tree," said Joe. "We've lots of good friends there, We'll take you to them one day. There's a dear little fairy called Silky, because she has such a mass of silky gold hair. And there's Moonface, with a big round face like a moon. He's a darling, said Bessie. And there's funny old Mr. What's-his-name, said Fanny. What's his real name? Asked Dick in surprise. Nobody knows, not even himself, said Joe. So everyone calls him Mr. What's-its-name. Oh, and there's the old saucepan man. He's always hung around the kettles and saucepans and things. And he's so deaf that he always hears everything wrong. Dick's eyes began to shine. Take me there, he begged. Quick, take me there. I can't wait to see all these exciting people. We can't go till Mother says she doesn't need us in the house, said Bessie. But we will take you, of course we will. And, Dick, there's a slippery slip, a slide that goes right down inside of the trunk from the top to the bottom, said Fanny. It belongs to Moonface. He lends people cushions to slide down on. I do want to go down that slide, said Dick, getting terribly impatient. Why do you tell me all these things if you can't take me to see them now? I'll never be able to sleep tonight. Good gracious. My head feels like a whirl already. To think of the faraway tree and Moonface and Silky and the slippery slip. Dick, we'll take you as soon as we can, promised Joe. There's no hurry. The faraway tree is always there. We never know what land is going to be at the top. We have to be very careful sometimes because there might be a dangerous land, one that we couldn't get away from. A voice came from downstairs. Children, are you going to stay up all the day? I suppose you don't want any tea. What a pity, because I've made some scones for you and put out some strawberry jam. 4 children raced down the stairs. Scones and strawberry jam. Gracious, they weren't going to miss those. Good old Mother, she was always thinking of some nice little treat for them. Joe, Father wants you to dig up some potatoes for him after tea, said Mother. Dick can help you, and Bessie and Fanny. I want you to finish my ironing for me, because I have to take some mended clothes to Mrs. Harris, and she lives such a long way away. The children had been rather hoping to go out and take Dick to the Enchanted Wood. They looked disappointed, but they said nothing, because they knew that in a family everyone had to help when they could. Mother saw their disappointed faces and smiled. I suppose you want to take Dick to see those peculiar friends of yours, she said. Well now, listen, if you are good children today and do the jobs you have to do, I'll give you a whole day's holiday tomorrow. Then you may take your dinner and your tea and go visit any friends you like. How would you like that? Oh, Mother, thank you, cried the children in delight. A whole day? Said Bessie. Why, Dick, we can show you everything. And maybe let you peep into whatever land is at the top of Faraway Tree, whispered Fanny. Oh, what fun. So they did their work well after tea and looked forward to the next day. Dick dug hard and Joe was pleased with him. It was going to be fun to have a cousin with them, able to work and play and enjoy everything too. When they went to bed that night, they left the doors of their rooms open so that they might call to one another. Sleep well, Dick, called Bessie. I hope it's fine tomorrow. What fun we shall have. I can't tell you how I'm longing for tomorrow. I know I shan't be able to sleep tonight. But he did, and so did all the others. When Mother came up at 10 o'clock, she peeped in at the children, and no one was awake. Joe woke first next day. He sat up and looked out of the window. The sun streamed in, warm and bright. Joe's heart jumped for joy. He leaned over to Dick's bed and shook him. Wake up, he said. It's tomorrow now, and we're going to the Enchanted Wood. Off to the Enchanted Wood. The children ate their breakfast quickly. Mother told Bessie and Fanny to cut sandwiches for themselves and to take a small chocolate cake from the larder. You can take a packet of biscuits too, she said, and there are apples in that dish over there. If you are hungry when you come home tonight, I will bake you some potatoes in the oven, and you can eat them in their skins with salt and butter. Oh, Mother, we shall be hungry, said Joe at once. Hurry up with those sandwiches, Bessie and Fanny. We want to start off as soon as possible. Now don't be too late home, or I shall worry, said Mother. Look after your cousin Joe. Yes, I will, promised Joe. At last, everything was ready. Joe packed the food into a leather bag and slung it over his shoulder. Then the four of them set off to the Enchanted Wood. It didn't take them long to get there. A narrow ditch was between the lane and the wood. "You've got to jump over the ditch, Dick," said Joe. They all jumped over. Dick stood still when he was in the wood. "What a strange noise the leaves of the trees make," he said. "It's as if they're talking to one another, telling secrets." "Wisher, wisher, wisher, wisher," whispered the trees. "They are talking secrets," said Bessie. "And do you know, Dick, if the trees have any message for us, we can hear it by pressing our left ears to the trunks of the trees. Then we really hear what they say." "Wisher, wisher, wisher, wisher," said the trees. "Come on," said Joe impatiently. "Let's go to the faraway tree." They all went on, and soon came to the queer magic tree. Dick stared at it in great astonishment. "Why, it's simply enormous," he said. "I've never seen such a big tree in my life, and you can't possibly see the top. Goodness gracious, what kind of tree is it? It's got oak leaves, and yet it doesn't really seem like an oak." "It's a funny tree," said Bessie. "It may grow acorns and oak leaves for a little way, and then suddenly you notice it's growing plums, then another day it may grow apples or pears. You just never know, but it's all very exciting." "How do you climb it?" asked Dick. "In the ordinary way?" "Well, we will today," said Joe, "because we want to show you our friends who live inside the tree. But sometimes there's a rope that is let down the tree, and we can go up quickly with the help of that. Or sometimes Moonface lets down a cushion on the end of a rope and then pulls us up one by one." He swung himself up into the tree, and the others followed. After a bit, Dick gave a shout. "I say, it's most extraordinary! This tree is growing nuts now, look!" Sure enough it was. Dick picked some and cracked them. They were hazelnuts, ripe and sweet. Everyone had some and enjoyed them. Now when they all got very high up indeed, Dick was most surprised to see a little window in the trunk of the faraway tree. "Does somebody live just here?" he called to the others. "Look, there's a window here. I'm going to peep in." "Oh, you better not," shouted Joe. "The angry pixie lives there, and he hates people peeping in." But Dick felt so curious that he just had to peep in. The angry pixie was at home. He was filling his kettle with water when he looked up and saw Dick's surprised face at his window. Nothing made the pixie so angry as to see people looking at him. He rushed to the window and at once flung it open. "Peeping again?" he shouted. "It's too bad. All day and all night people come peeping. Take that!" He emptied the kettle of water all over poor Dick. Then he slammed his window and drew the curtains across. Joe, Bessie, and Fanny couldn't help laughing. "I told you not to peep in at the angry pixie," said Joe, wiping Dick with his hanky. "He's nearly always in a bad temper. Oh, and by the way, Dick, I must warn you about something else. There's an old woman who lives high up in the tree who is always washing. She empties the water down the tree, and it comes sloshing down. You'll have to look out for that, or you'll get wet." Dick looked up at the tree as if he half expected the water to come tumbling down at once. "Come on," said Bessie. "We'll come to where the owl lives soon. He's a friend of Silky's, and sometimes brings us notes from her." The owl was fast asleep. He usually only woke up at night time. Dick peered in at his window and saw the big owl asleep on a bed. He couldn't help laughing. "I am enjoying all this," he said to Fanny. "It's quite an adventure." The children climbed higher and came to a broad branch. There's a dear little yellow door and a knocker and a bell," cried Dick in surprise, staring at the door seat nearly in the trunk of the tree. "Who lives here?" "Our friend Silky," said Joe. "Ring the bell and she'll open the door." Dick rang the bell and heard it go ting-a-ling inside. Footsteps pattered to the door. It opened and a pretty little elf looked out. Her hair hung around her face like a golden mist. "Hello, Silky," cried Joe. "We've come to see you, and we've brought our cousin Dick, who has come to live with us. He's having a lovely time exploring the faraway tree." "How do you do, Dick?" said Silky, holding out her small hand. Dick shook hands shyly. He thought Silky was the loveliest creature he had ever seen. "I'll come with you if you're going to visit Moonface," said Silky. "I want to borrow some jam from him. I'll take some pop biscuits with me, and we'll have them in Moonface's house." Whatever are pop biscuits? Asked Dick in surprise. Wait and see, said Joe with a grin. They all went up the tree again. Soon they heard a funny noise. That's old Mr. What's-his-name snoring, said Joe. Look, there he is. Sure enough, there he was, sitting in a comfortable chair, his hands folded over his big tummy and his mouth wide open. Oh, I'd love to pop something in his open mouth, said Dick at once. Yes, that's what everybody feels, said Joe. Moonface and Silky once popped some acorns in, didn't you, Silky? And What's-its-name was very angry. He threw Moonface up through the hole in the cloud and landed him in the strange country there. Where's the old saucepan man? Asked Bessie. He's usually with his friend, Mr. What's-its-name. I expect he has gone to see Moonface, said Silky. Come on, we'll soon be there. As they went up the tree, Silky suddenly stopped. Listen, she said. They all listened. They heard a curious noise. Slishy, sloshy, coming nearer and nearer. It's Dame Washalot's dirty water coming, yelled Joe. Get under a branch, everyone. Dick wasn't as quick as the others. They all hid under big boughs. But poor old Dick wasn't quite under his when the water came pouring down the tree. It tumbled onto his head and went down his neck. Dick was very angry. The others were sorry, but they thought it was very funny too. Next time I climb up this tree, I'll wear a bathing dress, said Dick, trying to wipe himself dry. Really, I think somebody ought to stop Dame Washalot pouring her water away like that. How disgusting. Oh, you'll soon get used to it, and dodge the water easily, said Joe. On they all went up the tree again, and at last came almost to the top. There they saw a door in the trunk of a tree, and from behind the door came the sound of voices. That's Moonface and the old saucepan man, said Joe, and he banged on the door. It flew open and Moonface looked out. His big round face beamed with smiles when he saw who his visitors were. Hello, 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 he said. Come along in. The saucepan man is here. Everyone went into Moonface's curious round room. There was a large hole in the middle of it, which was the beginning of the slippery slip, the wonderful slide that went round and round the inside of the tree right to the bottom. Moonface's furniture was arranged round the inside of the tree trunk, and it was all curved to fit the curve of the tree. His bed was curved, the chairs were curved, the sofa and the stove. It was very queer. Dick stared at it all in the greatest surprise. He really felt as if he must be in a dream. He saw everybody very queer sitting on the sofa. It was the old saucepan man. He really was very curious. He really was a very curious sight. He was hung all around with saucepans and kettles, and he wore a saucepan for a hat. You could hardly see anything of him except his face, hands, and feet, because he was so hung about with saucepans and things. He made a tremendous clatter wherever he moved. Who's that? He said, looking at Dick. This is Dick, said Joe, and Dick went forward to shake hands. The saucepan man was very deaf, though he did sometimes hear quite well, but he nearly always heard everything wrong, and sometimes he was very funny. Chick, he said. Well, that's a funny name for a boy. Not Chick, but Dick, shouted Moonface. Stick, said the saucepan man, shaking hands. Good morning, Stick. I hope you are well. Dick giggled. Moonface got ready to shout again, but Silky quickly handed him her bag of pop biscuits. Don't get cross with him, she said. Look, let's all have some pop biscuits. They are fresh made today, and oh, Moonface, do tell us, what land is at the top of the faraway tree today? The land of Topsy-Turvy, said Moonface, but I don't advise you to go there. It's most uncomfortable. Oh, do let's, cried Dick. Can't we just peep at it? We'll see, said Joe, giving him a pop biscuit. Eat this, Dick. Pop biscuits were lovely. Dick put one in his mouth and bit it. It went pop at once, and he found his mouth full of sweet honey from the middle of the biscuit. Delicious, he said. I'll have another. I say, Joe, do. Let's take our lunch up to the land of Topsy-Turvy. Oh, do. The land of Topsy-Turvy. What is Topsy-Turvy Land like? Asked Joe, taking another pop biscuit. Never been there, said Moonface. But I should think it's quite safe, really. It's only just come there, so it should stay for a while. We could go up and see what it's like and come down again if we don't like it. Silky and I and Saucepan will come with you if you like. Moonface turned to Saucepan Man, who was enjoying his 5th pop biscuit. "Saucepan, we're going up the ladder," he said. "Are you coming?" "Humming?" said Saucepan, looking all around as if he thought there might be bees about. "No, I didn't hear any humming." "I said, are you coming?" said Moonface. "Oh, coming," said Saucepan. "Of course I'm coming. Are we going to take our lunch?" "Yes," said Moonface, going to a curved door that opened onto a larder. "I'll see what I've got. Tomatoes, plums, ginger snaps, ginger beer. I'll bring them all." He put them into a basket. Then they all went out of the funny curved room onto the big branch outside. Moonface shut his door. Joe led the way up to the very top of the faraway tree. Then suddenly, Dick gave a shout of astonishment. "Look!" he cried. "There's an enormous white cloud above and around us. Isn't it queer?" Sure enough, a vast white cloud swarmed above them, but just nearby was a hole right through the cloud. "That's where we go, up that hole," said Joe. "See that branch that goes up the hole? Come on." They all went up the last and topmost branch of the faraway tree. It went up and up through the purple hole in the cloud. At the very end of the branch was a little ladder. Joe climbed the ladder, and suddenly his head poked out into the land of Topsy-Turvy. Then, one by one, all the others followed, and soon all 7 of them stood in the curious land. Dick was not as used to strange lands as were the others. He stood and stared, with his eyes so wide open that it really seemed as if he were going to drop out his head. And indeed it was a strange sight he saw. Every house was upside down and stood on its chimneys. The trees were upside down, their heads buried into the ground and their roots in the air. And dear me, the people walked upside down too. "They are walking on their hands, with their legs in the air," said Joe. "Goodness, what a queer thing to do." Everyone stared at the folk of Topsy-Turvy Land. They got along very quickly on their hands and often stopped to talk to one another, chattering busily. Some of them had been shopping and carrying their baskets on one foot. "Let's go and peep inside a house and see what it's like. All topsy-turvy," said Joe. So they set off to the nearest house. It looked most peculiar standing on its chimneys. No smoke came out of them, but smoke came out of a window near the top. "How do we get in?" said Bessie. They watched a topsy-turvy man walk on his hands to another house. He jumped in at the nearest window, going up a ladder first. The children looked for the ladder that entered the house they were near. They soon found it. They went up it to a window and peeped inside. "Gracious," said Joe. "Everything really is upside down in it, the chairs and tables and everything. How uncomfortable it must be." An old lady was inside the house. She was sitting upside down in an upside-down chair and looked very peculiar. She was angry when she saw the children peeping in. She clapped her hands and a tall man, walking on his hands, came running in from the next room. "Send those rude children away," shouted the old woman. The tall man hurried to the window on his hands, and the children quickly slid down the ladder, for the man looked rather fierce. "It's a silly land, I think," said Joe. "I vote we just have our lunch and then leave this place. I wonder why everything is topsy-turvy." "Oh, a spell was put on everything and everybody," said Moonface, "and in a trice everything was topsy-turvy. Look, wouldn't that be a good place to sit and eat our lunch in?" It was under a big oak tree whose roots stood high in the air. Joe and Moonface set out the lunch. It looked very good. "There's plenty for everybody," said Joe. "Have a sandwich, Silky." "Saucepan, have a plum." "Crumb?" said Saucepan in surprise. "Is that all you can spare me, a crumb?" "Plum, plum, plum," said Moonface, pushing a ripe one into the Saucepan man's hands. "Oh, plum," said Saucepan. "Well, why didn't you say so?" Everybody giggled. They all set to work to eat a good lunch. In the middle of it, Joe happened to look round, and he saw something surprising. It was a policeman coming along, walking on his hands, of course. "Look what's coming," said Joe with a laugh. Everyone looked. Moonface went pale. "I don't like the look of him," he said. "Suppose he's come to lock us up for something. We couldn't get away down the faraway tree before this land swung away from the top." The policeman came right up to the little crowd under the tree. "Why aren't you topsy-turvy?" he asked in a stern voice. "Don't you know the rule in this land is that everything and everyone has to be upside down?" "Yes, but we don't belong to this silly land," said Joe. And if you were sensible, you'd make another rule, saying that everybody must be the right way up. You just have no idea how silly you look, policeman, walking on your hands. The policeman went red with anger. He took a sort of stick from his belt and tapped Joe on the head with it. "Topsy-turvy," he said, "topsy-turvy." And to Joe's horror, he had to turn himself upside down at once. The others stared at poor Joe, standing on his hands, his legs in the air. "Oh golly," cried Joe. "I can't eat anything properly now because I need my hands to walk with. Policeman, put me right again." "You are right now," said the policeman, and walked solemnly away on his hands. "Put Joe the right way up," said Dick. But everybody tried to get him over so that he was the right way up again. But as soon as they got his legs down and his head up, he turned topsy-turvy again. He just couldn't help it, for he was under a spell. A group of topsy-turvy people came to watch. They laughed loudly. "Now he belongs to Topsy-Turvy Land," they cried. "He'll have to stay here with us. Never mind, boy. You'll soon get used to it." "Take me back to the faraway tree," begged Joe, afraid that he really and truly might be made to stay in this queer land. "Hurry!" Everybody jumped to their feet. They helped Joe along to where the hole ran down through the cloud. They tried their best to make him stand upright, but he couldn't. The spell wouldn't let him. "It would be difficult to get him down through the hole," said Dick. "Look, there it is. I better go down first and see if I can help him. You others push through as carefully as you can. He'll have to go upside down, I'm afraid." It was very difficult to get Joe through the hole because his hands and head had to go first. Moonface held his legs to guide him. Dick held his shoulders as he came down the ladder so that he wouldn't fall. At last they were all 7 through the hole in the clouds, and they were on the broad branch outside Moonface's house. Joe held on to the branch with his hands. His legs were in the air. "Moonface, Silky, can't you possibly take the spell away?" groaned he. "It's dreadful." "Silky, what land is coming to the top of Faraway Tree next?" asked Moonface. "Have you heard?" "I think it's the land of spells," said Silky. "It should come tomorrow, but I'm not really sure." "Oh, well, if it's the land of spells, we could easily get a spell from there to put Joe right," said Moonface, beaming. "Joe, you must stay the night with me and wait for the land of spells tomorrow. The others can go home and tell what has happened." "All right," said Joe. "I can't possibly climb up the tree again if I'm upside down, so I'll just have to wait here. Mother will never believe it, though, when the others tell her why I don't go home. Still, it can't be helped." They all went into Moonface's house. Joe stood on a chair, upside down. The others sat about and talked. Dick was sorry for Joe, but he couldn't help feeling a bit excited. Goodness, if this was the sort of adventure that Joe, Bessie, and Fanny had, what fun things were they going to be? The others began telling him all the adventures they had had. Silky had made some tea and went down the tree to fetch some more pop biscuits. When it was 5:30, Bessie said they must go. "Goodbye, Joe," she said. "Don't be too unhappy. Pretend you are a bat. They always sleep upside down, you know, and don't mind a bit. Come on, Dick, we're going down the slippery slip." Dick was excited. He took the red cushion that Moonface gave him and sat himself at the top of the slide. Bessie gave him a push, and off he went, round and round the inside of the enormous faraway tree, sitting safely on his cushion. What a way to get down a tree! Land of spells. Dick shot round down the inside of the faraway tree on his cushion. He came to the bottom. He shot out of the trapdoor there and landed on the soft green moss. He sat there for a moment, out of breath. "That was the loveliest slide I've ever had," he thought to himself. Oh, wouldn't I like to do that again?" He had just got up from the moss when the trapdoor at the bottom of the tree opened once again, and Fanny shot out on a yellow cushion. Then came Bessie, giggling. She always thought it was a huge joke to slide down the inside of the tree like that. "What do we do with the cushions?" asked Dick. "Does Moonface want them back?" "Yes, he does," said Fanny, picking them up. "The red squirrel always collects them and sends them back to him." As she spoke, a red squirrel dressed in a jersey popped out of a hole in the trunk. "Here are the cushions," said Fanny, and the squirrel took them. He looked up into the tree and a rope came swinging down. "Moonface always lets it down for his cushions," said Bessie. Dick watched the squirrel tie the 3 cushions to the rope end. Then he gave 3 gentle tugs at the rope, and at once the rope was pulled up, and the cushions went swinging up the tree to Moonface. I wish Joe was with us, said Dick, as they all went home. Do you suppose Aunt Polly will be worried about him? Well, we'll have to tell Mother, said Fanny. She is sure to ask where he is. Mother did ask, of course. And the girls told her what had happened. I find all this very difficult to believe, said Mother, astonished. I think Joe is just spending the night with Moonface for a treat. Well, he certainly must come back tomorrow, for there is work for him to do. Nobody said any more. The girls and Dick felt very tired, and after some hot cocoa and potatoes cooked in their jackets for supper, they all went to bed. Bessie wondered how Joe was getting on at Moonface's. He was getting on all right. Though he was very tired of being upside down, it didn't matter how hard he tried to get the right way up, he always swung back topsy-turvy again. The policeman had put a very strong spell on him. You had better try to sleep in my bed, said Moonface. I'll sleep on my sofa. I suppose I'll have to stand on my head all night, said poor old Joe. And that's just what he did have to do. It was most uncomfortable. Once he lost his balance when he was asleep and tipped off the bed. He almost fell down the slippery slip, but Moonface, who was awake, reached out a hand and caught his leg just in time. Gracious, said Moonface. Don't go doing things like this in the middle of the night, Joe. It's most upsetting. Well, how can I help it, said Joe. I'll tie your feet to a nail on my wall, said Moonface. Then you can't topple over when you are asleep. So he did that, and Joe didn't fall down anymore. When morning came, he was most astonished to find himself upside down, for at first he didn't remember what had happened. I'll just peep up through the hole in the cloud and see if by any chance the land of spells is there yet, said Moonface. If it is, we'll go up and see what we can do for you. So off he went up the little ladder and popped his head out to the hole in the cloud to see if the land of Topsy-Turvy was still there, or if it had gone. There was nothing there at all, only just a big white cloud moving about like a thick mist. Moonface slipped down the ladder again. Topsy-Turvy has gone, but the next land hasn't come yet, he said. We'll have breakfast, and then I'll look again. Hello, here's Silky. Stay and have breakfast, Silky darling. I came up to see how Joe was, said Silky. Yes, I'd love to have breakfast. It's funny to watch Joe eating upside down. Hasn't the land of spells come yet? Not yet, said Moonface, putting the kettle on his stove to boil. There's nothing there at all, but Topsy-Turvy is gone, thank goodness. They all had breakfast. Moonface cooked some porridge. What do you want on your porridge? He asked Joe. Trickle, sugar, cream. Joe couldn't see any trickle sugar cream on the table. Trickle, he said. Please, Moonface. Moonface handed him a small jug that seemed to be quite empty. Trickle, he said to the jug in a firm voice, and trickle came pouring out as soon as Joe tipped up the jug. Silky wanted cream, and cream came out when Moonface said cream to the jug. It was great fun. Moonface went again to see if the land of spells had come. This time he came back excited. It's there, he said. Come on, I'd better take some money with me, I think, in case we have to buy the spell we want. He took a big purse down from a shelf, and then he and Silky helped Joe to walk upside down up the branch that led through the hole in the cloud to the little ladder. Up he went with great difficulty, holding on tightly to the rungs of the ladder with his hands. At last he was up in the land of spells. This land was like a big marketplace. In it were all kinds of curious little shops and stalls. All kinds of people sold spells. In some of the shops sat tall wizards, famous for magic. In some of them were green-eyed witches, making spells as fast as they could. Outside, in the marketplace, sat all kinds of fairy folk at their stalls, pixies, gnomes, goblins, elves, all crying their wares at the top of their high voices. Spell to make a crooked nose straight, cried one pixie, rattling a yellow box in which were magic pills. Spell to grow blue daffodils, cried a gnome, showing a bottle of blue juice. Spell to make cats sing, cried another gnome. Joe could hardly believe his ears. How queer! Who would want to make cats sing? Now we must just see if we can possibly find a spell to make you stand up straight again, said Moonface, and he went into a little low shop in which sat a strange goblin. The goblin had blue pointed ears, and his eyes sparkled as if he had fireworks in them. I want a spell, said Moonface. What for? Asked the goblin. I've a spell for everything under the sun in my shop. Very powerful spells too, some of them. Would you like a spell to send you traveling straight off to the moon? Oh no, thank you, said Moonface at once. I know I look like the man in the moon with my big round face, but I'm nothing at all to do with the moon really. Well, would you like a spell to make you as tall as a giant? Said the goblin, picking up a box and opening it. He showed Moonface a large blue pill inside. Now, take that pill and you'll shoot up as high as a house. You'll feel fine. It only costs 1 piece of gold. No, thank you, said Moonface. If I grew as big as that, I'd never get down the hole in the cloud back to the faraway tree. And if I did, I'd never be able to get in at the front door of my house. I don't want silly spells like that. Silly? Cried the goblin in a rage. You call my marvelous spells silly? Another word from you, stupid old round face, and I'll use a spell that will turn you into a big bouncing ball. Silky pulled Moonface out of the shop quickly. She was quite white. Moonface, you know you shouldn't make these people cross, she whispered. Why, you may find yourself nothing but a bouncing ball or a black beetle or something if you are rude to them. For goodness sake, let me ask for the spell we want. Look, here's a bigger shop with a nice-looking witch inside. They all went in. The witch was knitting stockings from the green smoke that came from her fire. It was marvelous to watch her. Joe wished he wasn't upside down, so he might see her properly. Good morning, said the witch. Do you want a spell? Yes, please, said Silky in a most polite voice. We want to make our friend Joe come the right way up again. That's easy, said the witch, her green eyes looking in a kindly way at poor Joe. I've only got to rub a walking spell onto the soles of his feet and he will be all right. The walking spell will make his feet want to walk, and he will have to stand up the right way to walk them, so he'll be cured. Come here, boy. Joe walked over to the witch on his hands. She took down a jar from the shelf and opened it. It was full of purple ointment. The witch rubbed some onto the soles of Joe's shoes. Rimini romini reet, stand on your own 2 feet. Rimini romini the right way up you must go. And of course you can guess what happened. Joe swung right over, stood on his 2 feet again, and there he was, as upright as Moonface and Silky. Wasn't he glad?